Hello and welcome to this Mid-Suffolk Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'm James Caston. I'll be chairing this meeting today. May I first remind you of the domestic arrangements. If you are attending the meeting and speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you will be asked to leave. Please ensure your mobile phones and laptops are on silent. Additionally, we will be using the e-voting for this meeting on the modern.gov app. And the council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please inform the committee clerk. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via the fire exit and make your way to the assembly point on Ipswich Town's football ground. Follow the signs directing you to the fire exit at each end of the floor. Do not enter the atrium. If you are in the atrium at the time of the alarm, follow the signs to the nearest fire exit. Use the stairs, not the lifts, and do not re-enter the building until you are told it's safe to do so. So we have in attendance of this meeting, we have Councillor Rachel Eburn, the Cabinet Member for Finance and Resources, and we have Melissa Evans, Director for Corporate Resources and Section 151 Officer. And we also have Alicia Norman as the Lead Officer for Overview and Scrutiny. So I'll get to the agenda. Thank you very much. Apologies for absence and substitutions, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Miles Rowe, but we do not have a substitute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item 2, to receive declarations of pecuniary, other registrable or non-registrable interest by members. I can't see any hands, so there are none. Item 3, to receive notifications of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Questions by the public?
None received.
Questions by councillors?
None received, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I'll move to the main part of this meeting, which is item 6, MOS 2301, Draft General Fund Assumptions for 2024 to 2025. I'd like to invite Councillor Eburn to introduce this report, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for inviting me to the committee today. This paper that's before you is presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to discuss and review the assumptions currently being made in preparation for the 2024-25 budget. It reflects changes expected in the cost of services, whether due to interest rates, inflation, or other factors such as housing growth, and it also considers potential changes in funding. Now, there's many factors, other factors being considered, not least the new administration's priorities, potential changes to business rates, such as those influenced by Gateway 14 outside Stowmarket, and also potential changes in investment income. These will all come forward in the first draft of the budget, and the committee will have full sight of them at that time. It's worth remembering also that while inflation is now 4.6%, this time last year it was 11.1%, and no one forecast that. And similarly, bank base rate is now 5.25% today, but short-term interest rates are still high compared to where they were last year. So in the meantime, we'd really appreciate your comments on what we have today in the paper today, and happy to take any questions on that. But for technical and very financial ones, I will ask Melissa to take the answer to that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Melissa, are you planning to say anything at this point? So we'll go to questions from councillors. Are there any questions? Councillor Scarf.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number. Do you want me to deal with them all in one go or just one by one?
However you choose to do it, Councillor Scarf.
If I deal with two first of all, then the officers can get the answers to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. On the budget assumptions, net cost of service, On the shared legal service, I just wanted to query on the bottom of page 6. You've assumed 4%, which is obviously the same as the salary increase that you've assumed in the pay award above, but you also say other costs likely to increase. So a £15,000 impact is barely 4% of the 401,000 budget. Is that enough in there? Because you've got other costs. We don't know what those other costs are. That's the first question. Yes, if you like. Yep.
I don't know if my brain will hold on to more than one question at a time. So those are the costs that have been put to us by the shared legal service. So it's their actual costs. So there will be some salaries element in there, but there will be some other costs as well. So it's a combination of both of those things, but that is the actual cost that they've given us for next year.
Please, just carry on asking your questions.
Okay, all right, thank you, Chair.
We'll take the answers.
The second question is on the shared revenues partnership, and it says it's a 3% increase. The increase to the cost of the shared revenues partnership has predominantly been on pay. Most other costs have remained the same, and vacancy savings have been delivered to help mitigate this impact. My question would be, is the SRP able to deliver the service that we expect of it by mitigating these vacancy savings?
I can answer that, Chair, if I may. I think with the SRP, whenever there's any sort of changes to policy or changes to work being done, they tend to kind of review the staffing and other resources that they need to do that. And so they're almost constantly reviewing. So what they find is actually they are able to kind of streamline some of their practices and change some of the staffing arrangements accordingly.
And final question, Chair. Page 8 refers to the Suffolk business rates pool, and we're assuming there's no top slicing of growth for the forthcoming year. Obviously, that's different to what we've had in the past, where we have top sliced with the Suffolk authorities joining together. In order to deliver that impact on the right-hand side of the page, is it something that we make as a unilateral decision not to do, or is it something that you've got an indication from the other business authority, the other authorities, that they are going to do the same?
Chair, if I may answer that. I understand that the decision will be made by all the authorities within the public sector leaders group, but that more than one has made a request that that top slicing doesn't happen. So it is likely that the probability of that decision going through is pretty high, I'd say. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Just to clarify then, so if more than one authority do not take part in the top slicing, does that mean that that top slicing only occurs in those authorities that select to take part, or does it mean that the whole scheme fails across Suffolk?
Through you, Chair, it has to happen across the board. So if one said we wanted to top slicing to keep continuing and the other said no, then it would go ahead. It's got to be all or nothing, as it were.
Thank you very much. I'll just ask a question. Here we're forecasting a reduction of income from development management. It says uncertainty in the housing market. Could you just talk a little bit about how you came to the conclusion and the basis of that decision, please?
Thank you, Chair. I can start on this one. I think with the, we've seen significant housing growth in mid-Suffolk, and therefore the planning fees that go along with that. And I think there's now been more of a slowdown in that, and therefore the expectation is that level of sort of major developments isn't going to continue. And that is one of the reasons why that's been forecast. I understand that the planning department, as it were, the planning service are looking at ways of improving that position, and they're doing a lot more work on it. So we're hopeful that might not be the case, but also that ultimately it'll be kind of backed up by some good rationale for that.
Thank you. Councillor Carter, please.
Yes, I've received a question from Councillor Rowe, who unfortunately couldn't be here. Regarding supplies and services in the assumptions, they ask if there is a way to provide a range for gas or electric for it if it is in a high use year, e.g. hot summer and cold winter, a mid-use and a low use, e.g. and unfortunately would be when low use, a milder year given the potential effects of a climate crisis on energy usage.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure how the modelling has been done. I assume it's probably been based on the previous year's run rate, if you like. So we can certainly have a look at some different scenarios to see whether, you know, if it was a particularly hot summer, what it might look like for a lower usage. So we can certainly have a look at that. But I think it's probably based on kind of the last 12 months kind of run rate. So yeah, we can have a look at that.
Thank you. If I may ask the other one?
Yes, please.
Yes, we have a question. Range kind of fits into this. Is regarding Gateway 14, whereas we have got, I believe we have an income coming in and we have some figures of what money we should be receiving, but it's not incorporated in this. Is there a reason why it can't be incorporated, or is there likely to be incorporated later for next year?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, at the moment we're just working with Gateway 14 Limited to see what kind of the size of the dividend might be coming back to the council, and you know the timing of that and how much that's likely to be. So we are having a look at the dividend policy with the company. So at the moment we haven't bottomed out those numbers, but if there is a benefit for next year as we get closer to budget setting, we certainly will build that in, but it's just too early at this stage to build that in.
Can I? And just to add to that, I'd hope that we're in a position when you see the full draft budget in January, I hope that that would be all included so that there'd be, be complete picture at that point.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Matheson.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was wondering, looking at the gas and electricity and the fuel costs, whether there's any investment planned which would reduce our usage on not either of those two headings, and if we know yet what proportion of them is fossil fuel or not fossil fuel.
I think that's probably one I'll have to take away and come back if that's okay, because I don't have that detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. The equivalent report brought to ONS last year was headed up General Fund and Housing Revenue Account budget assumptions. So I was just wondering why there were no HRA budget assumptions being presented to overview and scrutiny, because I think last year with the council house rent increases, that was probably more controversial than the general fund.
Yeah, so we're currently doing the work on the HRA 30-year business plan. So I think until we've done more work on that, we can't accurately say what some of those assumptions might be, particularly around the rent increases, until we know what the costs are of that service, because we don't want to assume a rent increase if we don't need to. Equally, as costs are going up, we potentially would need to build something in. So we are working on that at the moment, but we haven't finalised that. So those numbers will be coming back to January overview and scrutiny. So you will be seeing something before it goes to Cabinet.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehead, another.
Just a couple more. With business rates, I think it's already been mentioned about Gateway 14. It says it could be will be a significant positive impact when the large range comes online, which I think several of us are going to quite a lot of people are going to the unveiling tomorrow. And it says the timing of this is very much dependent on the valuation office rating the sites as they are occupied. So I'm just questioning in terms of how that works, because people, if you move into a domestic dwelling, you're very much paying from the day you move in. So how does it actually work with the valuation office for these big warehouses?
So once the range has been fully fitted out, the valuation office will be instructed to go out and value the site. But what will happen is they'll backdate it to the time when it was occupied. So even though it might not be, they don't issue the bill straight away, it will be backdated to the right date. So they won't get any free period, if you like.
And I think if I can just add to you, Chair, that until we know that, because it's dependent on the valuation office, we can't kind of, we can make a few assumptions, but we need to know it.
Yeah, please carry
I
on.
was going to say, the point being that it is a big number, and to look at the big picture, you need the big numbers. The other question in terms of business rates and the zero increase in assumption is, I think there are quite a few things, like, for example, Port 1 at Great Blakenham built during this year, so there must be an annualised effect of, say, half a year this year and a full year next year. I just wondered how that could be built into the model.
Yeah, I think once we know the figures, then obviously the equivalent report this time next year will be different, because we'll have more certainty of those. I don't think until we've got any certainty we should be putting forward figures and assumptions now on that.
So, and just one final question. The SRP shows 3% assumption, but it's going up 241,000 or 22%. So, given how the SRP generally brings its figures in within budget, I'm rather surprised at that increase. What's the explanation?
Most of the increase is staffing, so it's 3% on the pay award that they're assuming for next year, but a lot of the other costs they've absorbed within the running costs, so it has brought it down less than what it would normally be. So they have absorbed some of those costs by making savings elsewhere in some of their contracts for things like printing, areas like that. So the 3% is on the salaries, but then there's other things that's covering that as well.
Thank you very much. In regards to the new homes bonus, I've done quite a few of these meetings now, and I've heard this ever such a lot that we don't know. We have to assume that we won't have a new homes bonus the year after next. How can you just explain what's happening with that and why we have that uncertainty, please?
I think for the Chair, if I may, for the last couple of years, when New Homes Bonus was first agreed, as it were, as a funding stream in 2011, it was done on a kind of 6-year basis. Then that moved to a 4-year basis, but the last couple of years it's been on a 1-year only. So the funding kind of arrangement that was agreed last year on about the 20th of December, it normally is, was that it would be for 1 year. So we will now wait until, I think we're expected to hear on the 22nd of December, so that whether that new homes bonus will be for another 1 year, but this time last year government said it is 1 year only. The hope would be that they would then say, yes, you've got another 1 year of new homes bonus, or there's something new coming in its place. But nobody knows at the moment.
I won't debate, but it seems like it's such an important part of these figures, and it's very difficult to not know whether we're getting it or not. Yeah, like I say, it seems to have been like that for quite a while. Do I have any further questions on this? No? So we'll go into debate. Would anyone like to talk on this? For me, it's good to see this nice and early, to be prepared for it. It's we're still waiting for quite a bit of detail, but I think it's really important to get to it early so we can sort of follow it through. This will be the first of a couple of or 3 meetings, maybe, yeah, on this. So it's good to get this early look at it. It does seem to me like things are fairly healthy. It is a bit of a worry going forward, and a lot of that does depend on the new homes bonus, which we've just discussed. Yeah, for me, yeah, thank you very much for this. It's good to see. Does anyone else want to Councillor Scarf.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, at this stage, I think the assumptions that you've presented to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee are fair assumptions. And obviously, as the Chair has just said, there'll be a lot more information coming out. And hopefully, by the time we get to our January meeting, we'll be in a much better position to know exactly what is going on. And let us hope that there is no nasty surprises in terms of our contributions from government. But I think it's a fair assumption at the moment, Chair, as you've just outlined.
Thank you very much. Would anybody, it's quite a difficult one to make recommendations on. I think a recommendation would be how we can make the information more accessible for the next meeting. I think we've done this several times, and we've got a very good sort of format for that information. But if there's no recommendations on this, I'm quite happy to take this to. Could I have a proposer for this? Thank you, Councillor Scarf. Could I have a seconder? Thank you very much. And we'll take this for the recommendation to the vote. Please make that vote now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, members, we're voting on the recommendation that's listed in the report, and this would just be 2.1, that the draft budget assumptions as set out in the report for the 2024-25 General Fund budget be noted. And if you give me a moment, I will just start that on ModGov. Thank you, members. That is now in progress for you to vote. Thank you, Chair. That is 5 votes for, so that is unanimous.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the portfolio holder and the officer for attending the meeting. I'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the MOS 2302 forthcoming decision list. Does anybody want to comment on that forthcoming decision list? No? Okay. That's for noting, so we'll move on to item 8, MOS 2303, Mid-Suffolk Overview and Scrutiny Work Plan. I'll pass you over to Alicia, who's got an update on it.
Thank you, Chair. So this morning we had the Babergh only Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and when discussing the work plan item, it was agreed by the members of the Babergh Committee that we would do an item in January or February time on a review on the number of officers working from home and productivity levels. I wanted to assess whether Mid-Suffolk would be keen on making that a joint item and putting it on their work plan as well, or otherwise it would remain a Babergh only item, but I just wanted to put that to the committee for consideration. Thank you, Chair.
Right, I'm happy for anyone to comment on that, or if anybody's got a problem with us doing that as a joint committee, they could say now. Councillor Matheson, I'm afraid you're not a member of the committee. Is it something that's very important for this item?
I just wanted to say I've actually got a question that I asked ahead of our last group meeting of the officers to get the statistics out on that, and I haven't seen the answer yet. So I'll see if I can get that answer to you if you're going to discuss it in January.
Yeah, thank you very much. That would be very useful, and we will do that as a joint meeting because it seems like the committees wants to do that. So yeah, if we could include that in the the joint scrutiny work plan. that is for noting, so thank you all. I think I'm concluding the meeting in record time. So thank you very much, and you'll all have a bit more time before full council at 5:30. So yeah, thank you for attending.